So I have a correction and a more detailed version of the video that I published yesterday explaining how camels disproves God of the Bible and Abraham. And so one of the people who wrote the most succinct version of what I'm going to correct and give more details on, and I understand how words sometimes can get lost when you're listening to a 10-minute video. So I will try to illustrate the more detailed version of this. But the correction would be the fact that I said that the wealth accumulation of camels did not occur until the Assyrians and then the Persians and then the Greeks came into Egypt. And in that one, it can be asserted that I'm saying that there were no camels in Egypt at the time frame of the third millennial, which would put it around in the 2000 BCE era. So let me provide some correction to that. Yes, there were camels. There were the two-humped camels that were in Egypt at the time frame of the Noah story, as well as the, not the Noah story, at the time frame of the Abraham story, as well as the story of Moses. So yes, there were camels, but they weren't at that point really seen, as far as we can tell, based on what the Egyptians have written, that they were a sign of wealth. But yes, there were camels. And so you may conclude from that in Exodus, when Moses was given camels by Pharaoh, when Abraham was given camels by Pharaoh, that would indeed make the story correct and not disprove the Bible. But let's go into a bit more detail concerning this, and let me illustrate it so that you can see it better. So don't mind my crude map here, but as was explained in the previous video, we first have your two-hump camels are here in Iran and the third millennium. Now, there were some two-hump camels in Saudi Arabia in that second and third millennium. And yes, in Egypt, there were also some two-hump camels in that region. Now, some speculate that here in Mesopotamia, there were also two-hump camels in that region at that time frame. Now, here's the deal that we're looking at. From Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, Israel is located here. Now, with Israel being located here during that time frame, the Bible would say that Abraham trekked from Israel to Egypt during a time of famine. And when he finished pimping out his wife, Sarah, to the Pharaoh of Egypt, he then took those camels back to Israel. That's the story. When Moses left and did the Exodus and wandered around the Sinai Peninsula until he came into, and that's too far, he came into Israel, that he did so. And one of the animals that is spoken of when the disease were to hit all the livestock was the fact that camels were noted as one of the livestock. And so some of those livestock went back to Israel. That's according to the Bible. So we do have from around 3000 BCE camels in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, and possibly in the Mesopotamia. This is far and away from Israel. This is Iraq. Very far distance from Israel. Now, you may say that they were able to migrate into this area during that time frame, but here's the thing. 3000 BCE, 3000 BCE and forward, you have these wild camels that then become domesticated. All right. Here's the rub. Archaeology shows that camels were not domesticated in Israel until around 930 to 900 BCE. So now, I want you to think about this. These people all had two-hump camels. The Bible claims that Abraham came to Egypt, got camels, went back. Moses got camels, went back to Israel. But yet there's zero evidence of those camels. Now remember, in the Abrahamic story, Abraham was wealthy, was so wealthy that him and Lot had to split up their people. And so on this little piece of territory called Israel, that is about right in here, with the splitting up of their large herds, there are no camels until 930, with the Exodus happening in and around, whether you agree with the 1500 BCE time frame or the 1300 BCE time frame, there are no camels in this region. No two-hump camels. The only camels that were found were the one-hump camels, but there are no two-hump camels in there. Now, so we're looking at a time frame. If you go by the biblical story, we're looking at a time frame from in and around 2500 BCE, which is the latest time frame that you're going to put the Abraham story, until we get to the Joshua story or the Moses story. Both of them are happening in and around the same time frame, which goes at the latest time frame around 1190 BCE. Now, supposedly, for over 1,300 years, because that's our difference here. We got a 1,300-year difference. They had camels in this region, went through many droughts, went through many famines, whether we're talking about Abraham's famine or Jacob's famine, went through multiple famines during this time frame in Israel, supposedly having camels, whether it's two humps or one humps, but supposedly having camels in Israel. Yet, we find that there were no camels in Israel until 930 to 900 BCE. So when we look at that, what we're saying here is that we have almost 300 years of possible shepherding of camels. If they had died out and then were reintroduced, there should be fossilized records or some other type of record that demonstrate that they lived and they died out. Now, if all these people were still using camels for this whole entire time from 3000 BCE up into present day, then there should be a litany of evidence. We find evidence of pigs, we find evidence of oxen and bulls and donkeys and all these other animals. We find evidence of that in Israel. But what we don't find is any evidence of camels. And as we can see, these regions had camels. This region, no camels. Now, through this time frame as well, the Bible has you believing that Israel took this land from the Canaanites. But as archaeology demonstrates to us, all of this land up throughout here was controlled by Egypt. Now, if Egypt had these camels, you'd think that camels would have been in that area. But even though we see if they had these camels, they were a sign of opulence, they would be in this area. But what we see in the 3,000, 2,500, 1,800 time frame of the use of camels, camels were not an opulent, a scene of wealth, because none of the governors, none of the vassal rulers in this Egyptian territory through this time frame had any camels. Camels were beasts of burden. They were on the same part level as donkeys. So we have no evidence of camels in this region until 930. But somehow in the story, which is written at around 400 to 200 BCE, all of a sudden they're utilizing camels. This is what is meant by it. So yes, I was wrong to say that they had no camels in Egypt, but the fact that they were not looked upon as something regal wasn't until it was introduced, more so a change in culture, by the Assyrians, Persians, and the Greeks. But it still remains, Abraham would not have gotten camels. So what do you guys think? And there's no evidence. So I apologize for the incorrect statements. But